Club started, I worked there from 58 until 62, and I was a Porsche dealer during most of that time. And because I had access to all the customers, and as Gene would say, you know, every time there's a new customer that they sold a Porsche to, you need to have an application. So we finally came up with what it was, 12 people or what, to create the club. And I had the easiest contact. And Bob and Jerry Tannenbaum was to the same meeting, the first national meeting, and I have pictures of his, that Gene was to, so they were both charter members, and Jerry had the connection with the National Porsche Club. I had the connection with the customers because I knew all the customers, and Bob Claypool was the one who was so enthusiastic to start clubs, and so he was the person to get us together. And between Jerry Tannenbaum having access to the PCA National, my having access to the customers, and Bob being the big promoter that he is,
we're willing to step up
he got us
and lead the effort.
to do something about it.
Okay.
So.
He talked about Baumgartner Motors. Who were the two guys that were, my Uncle Frank, Frank Narady, you know that name?
I don't know that name.
He's my uncle. He was a helicopter traffic reporter for WTMJ for a while.
Okay.
He's a top-notch race driver
Okay.
for
Indy type midget race cars.
business. And who are the people that, the two guys, the brothers that were,
Marchese.
Marchese, and
Marchese.
Marchese,
and Carl Marchese.
yeah, and
Pronounced Marchese.
when I was going after the VW, I mean, the Porsche, my uncle said to me, why are you getting a car like that? And I said to him that the Marchese brothers, each one of them walked into Baumgartner Motors and got a Porsche.
Okay.
That was the reason why.
Wonderful.
Well, you had that car way before they did.
Before they, yes.
So you must have inspired them.
You know, it certainly didn't take long before Porsche became very much found on racetracks in competitive events. And Gene, you raced.
Well, that's where we got the reputation of giant killer.
Giant Killer,
And
yes.
there's an article in the panel. The race where it happened was a nice race, Silver Lake. And I remember Ray Olson had a Carrera. I had a Super, I think. And there's Big Iron. I mean, it was huge cars there. And when it came to the feature, I had qualified to be way up in front. And I got scared. And I'm not going to get involved. I traded with Olson. I said, Olson, I asked permission. I'll trade places. You can have my place. I wasn't going to give it up. If you want to do this, I'll take yours in the back. And as the race turned out, at the end it was Bill, Victor, and me. And Olson was leading. Bill tried to block me. And I beat him. And I had already, he was known for bumping people. And I had a discussion with him before the race about that. And Ray and I came in 1-2, and all this iron was behind us. And they didn't even have a trophy for this. No one anticipated the Porsches would win. And that's when we were the giant killers, at least in this area.
And Hal, you raced as well.
Yes, I raced for about 10 years. I started racing a Porsche Speedster in 1957.
Right, okay.
And then about that time, I was still working for a Porsche dealer at the time. So when Porsche had difficulties with their licensing in the state of Wisconsin because they violated some franchise laws, my boss encouraged me to go in business for myself because I was the guy that knew how to use those tools.
Sure.
And his motive was to get rid of the parts on his shelf that he needed.
Yes.
So
And you were the likely suspect.
He made a deal with me that I couldn't refuse.
Okay.
He said, you know, whenever there is a Porsche dealer assigned, and Concourse Motors was supposed to be the new dealer, and I already had an employment contract signed with Concourse Motors to go to work for them when they became the Porsche dealer.
Okay.
So in the meantime, Baumgartner got me on the side and said, Harold, you're going to be leaving my dealership because you're going to go wherever the Porsches are, because that was my shtick.
Right.
I only did Porsches. And I hated English cars after working on them in my apprenticeship days. And so he encouraged me to go in my business for myself. He said, you know, I can't buy parts for Porsches anymore. I can't buy the cars anymore because I'm no longer a dealer. I'm suing Porsche for canceling me. So, you know, the blanket is torn and
Yeah.
it's all over. So
Okay.
he said, I have all these parts and tools. And he said, why don't you start your own business until this Porsche thing gets settled? And, you know, so I looked for a little building on the south side for $200 a month. And
Zimdar's Motors.
Zimdar's. And so I bought his leftover parts that he did, you know, and sold his parts inventory, and I bought all his special tools. He says, you know, you're the only guy that knows how to use these special tools in the house, so I may as well sell them to you. He said, and I'll give you my customer list, and when people come in with their repairs for Porsche, I'll just send them to you because I won't have the parts and I won't have the tools anymore. So he encouraged me and helped me get into my business.
Okay.
So the place that I had to get Porsche parts from was in Illinois. And so I had some cars that Baumgartner had sold that were still in warranty,
Mm-hmm.
and cars that would come into the area that were sold elsewhere
But needed service.
that needed service
Sure.
and or were still under warranty. So Porsche made arrangements with me
Oh.
that because they couldn't do any business in Wisconsin. So therefore, they couldn't reimburse me for doing warranty work. I was a factory-trained Porsche mechanic, but they couldn't reimburse me. So what they did is, at the Porsche distributor, they put a credit against the parts account at that distributor so that I could get paid by using parts instead of payment. So I would be down there all the time picking up parts to repair the Porsches that I did. And so that's how they would reimburse.
It was
me.
barter. You were just barter.
Yeah, it was
Labor
the barter
for parts.
system. We went back to that thing because Porsche couldn't do any business whatsoever in Wisconsin, yet they had cars running around that were still under warranty. So the cars could either go back to Chicago to get warranty work done, or they could come to me, and then we had this little underground kind of way of taking care of it. And so I was pretty close with the Porsche people in those days, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was hoping that one day I'd become a Porsche dealer. And of course, I wasn't a Volkswagen dealer. So that disqualified me, just like my previous boss, because he wasn't a Volkswagen dealer. And Porsche aligned themselves with Volkswagen.
Right.
And the distribution system all with Volkswagen.
Yes.
So therefore, Concourse was a
Concourse Motors
Volkswagen dealer. And
Became the first
yes,
Porsche dealer.
so that same distributor, Oliver Schmidt, out of House on Edens, it was called, was the Volkswagen Porsche distributor. He ended up becoming a BMW distributor. So when I kept pestering them about becoming a Porsche dealer, they said, don't go away, man. You can have a BMW franchise. So they said, send a guy up there to sign me up as a BMW dealer. So I was the first BMW dealer in the state.
Okay. Okay.
And so later on, they came back to me and offered me the Porsche franchise when they were doing, they separated, you know, they needed a different division. Volkswagen.
Yeah.
And they came back to me and offered me. By that time, I had sold so many BMWs, I said, I don't think I can desert all my BMW customers and take on the Porsche. So I never did become a Porsche dealer, as it turned out.
So Bob, did you make it to racing, or were you doing other
I
activities?
didn't ever get into racing, only went around fast tracks when there was a club
Event,
event.
okay.
But what you just said about BMWs and so forth, I remember when I was leaving Milwaukee for a while, and I had to go on a business trip or something, and you said that you had been asked by somebody in Chicago that they were dealing with a guy in the north part of Milwaukee to, they wanted you to take over the handle that vehicle sale. And I said, give me the papers, and I looked at them over the weekend, and Monday came back to you and said, it looks like a good deal for me. That was the BMW.
Hmm.
Remember that part?
Yep, yep, yep. Yes.
So aside from many members becoming involved in racing, or many Porsche enthusiasts becoming involved in racing, when you go back to the Porsche Club, there were very different kinds of activities that occurred compared to today. I mean, you did things like economy runs. How far can I drive on a given quantity of fuel? And that became a competitive event. So that wasn't pedal to the metal. That was, let's be very careful about how we use the throttle because we're looking for distance. And it seemed as though there were more social events, a lot more social gatherings of members of the Porsche Club. Is that a fair characterization?
In the beginning, because people were not so much interested in performance things, they were rallies, economy runs, as you say, Hare and Hounds rallies, social, a lot of social gymkhanas.
Yeah.
Not many gymkhanas at the time. There were some. I have some pictures of them. However, all of a sudden, as the club structure changed,
Mm-hmm.
in 1 year we ran 3 autocrosses at Lindale Farms.
Oh, sure.
In 1 year.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, the club changed its complexion and became
Competitive.
competitive,
Okay.
competition oriented,
Okay.
Well,
and speed oriented.
we're doing some other things. I remember when I was assistant general manager at Capital Corp, and I got the parking lot areas for
Yes, for the
Saturday or
gymkhanas.
Sunday or something, we would have gymkhanas there.
Yep.
We did different kind of things like that.
The club started out more or less social and then slightly into some rallies and then some speed events and then
Right.
Lindale Farms up and we went full board to competitive.
Now we're going to drive these cars the way they're meant to be
driven.
Right, okay. But the race scene, there are a lot of interesting personalities from Wisconsin that were part of the race scene, like Bill Wiestoff, as an example. Augie Patz did some Porsche driving. I don't know if Jim Jeffers did. I think Jeffers drove Jaguar, didn't he? And,
He drove my Porsche one night.
He drove your
In the
Porsche?
dark, ran a couple of corners and went around the block, and looked at me and said, "You can have it." You want an hour.
So that's when he made his connection with
I just
Chevrolet.
one of the better drivers in our whole area.
With Jim, with
I was very happy to know he wasn't going to drive a Porsche.
with his Corvette.
Yeah, then we wouldn't have to compete against
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, there you go.
Purple people eater.
Yeah.
He was definitely a personality.
Well, he was a personality.
I just talked to him. He's still alive.
No, he died.
He passed away just recently.
I must have talked to him a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yeah, he
Just
passed away.
passed away within the last month.
Yes, he did.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah,
He was sick, and I know he got
yeah,
involved
he was not well.
in, you can go to Africa and do some charitable work out there. I'm sorry to hear it.
Yeah, he passed away. But Bill Wiestoff campaigned for a number of years. I think he started campaigning in 1955 and or thereabouts, certainly.
Well, he first raced Alfa Romeos,
Okay,
and he would buy his cars and have them serviced at Baumgartner Motors.
Okay.
And it's always